Welcome to Sweet Treats with Gia. Today we're making Patron Margarita Cupcakes. Patron Margarita Cupcakes you'll need, well, I like to use cake flour, but you can use basic cooking flour, a cup and a half of flour. I've mixed the 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt with 1½ teaspoon of baking powder, a cup of sugar. This is a fourth of a teaspoon of vanilla, but I'm gonna double my recipe today, so that's why you see a little more. And I like to put a drop of vanilla butter emulsion, and then we have the juice of 1½ limes. Like I said, I'm doubling it, so you'll see a little more. And then this is the zest of 1½ limes. You're going to need 2 tablespoons of Patron and ½ cup of buttermilk, 2 room temperature eggs. If you're baking quickly,
time to take your eggs out of the refrigerator ahead of time, you can always place them in a cup of warm water, and that will bring your eggs to room temperature quickly.
And then I have lightly softened butter. You need 1 stick of butter for this recipe. Again, I'm doubling my recipe, so you see 2, but you just need 1, and you want it just to be a little soft to where you can push it. Not too soft, not too hard. Okay, so I've added 1½ cups of baking flour already. So I'm going to do my other, and I'm going to mix in the baking powder and the salt. And I'm going to just lightly whisk this together. And then set this aside. So now I'm going to put my stick of butter into my bowl. And then the other one. Again, I'm doubling my recipe today. And I'm using a handheld mixer, but you can use a KitchenAid mixer. And you're going to start off on the lowest speed that you have on whatever mixer you're using. And you're just going to mix it until it's creamy. So now that I have it creamy, I'm going to pour in my sugar. And this process, once you begin mixing this, will take 5 minutes to mix, and you want to mix it until it's creamy and light and fluffy. I like to stop during it and kind of just scoop it down, scoop the sides down. If you have a KitchenAid mixer, you probably won't see this happen as much. It'll happen, but you just want to scoop everything back to the center. And you can see that it's starting to get creamy, and that's the consistency that we want to get into. We want it to be a little more fluffy. Scrape down the sides, and you can see that it's fluffy, and it's almost like an icing. Okay. So now that I have this nice and fluffy and mixed well together, I'm going to pour in the vanilla extract and the bakery emulsion, which is a butter vanilla version of the emulsion. So now once you've done that, you're going to mix in your lime juice. It's going to cause the butter to look curdled. Don't worry about that. Once you pour in the flour, it kind of goes back to consistent cake batter, cupcake batter. So pay no attention to it and don't like worry about it. It's okay. So I've got the lime juice. I got the zest of 1.5 lime, a little extra because like I said I doubled my recipe, and I've got the Patron, and we all love Patron, I think. So now you can kind of see it start to curdle, and like I said, don't worry about that, that's fine. I'm going to scrape down the sides. Now that that's done, I'm going to mix in my 2 eggs, one at a time. When I'm baking, and pay no attention to that. It's just me, like, just in my zone. It's my favorite thing to do. I used to love doing it with my grandma. I remember the first cake that we made was a 7-Up cake, and my mother's famous dish that I loved when I was a kid was her lime cheesecake, which was out of this world. Tell that it's really starting to curdle, but again, don't worry about that. So now that I have everything mixed together, it fully looks curdled like cottage cheese. You're going to mix your dry ingredients with your wet ingredients in 3 parts. So I'm going to put a little bit of dry, a little bit of buttermilk, a little more dry, a little more buttermilk, the rest of the dry, the rest of the buttermilk. Oh, and actually, I need to add my other 2 eggs, because again, I doubled my recipe. So now's the time where you can, again, scrape down your sides. Okay. So the way I came to these cupcakes is I wanted something different to take to a friend's party, and I happened upon this recipe online. And when I found it online, I was like, how can I like up this recipe a notch? And I'll show you guys how I do it. By adding my butter vanilla emulsion, and I put a little more vanilla in these cupcakes than the recipe requires, which you can find at the bottom of this post. I put a little more in it because I like the vanilla-y, like lemon flavor for these cupcakes. And now you can see they're really getting like airy and fluffy. The last bit of that. So in a minute I'm going to just stop mixing all together because you don't want to overmix your batter. I'll just tap these in here. Again, scrape down your sides. Put all those ingredients into your batter. And you see it's nice and fluffy. And that's why I like using cake flour, because it's sifted. And you could sift your flour a lot, but that takes a lot of time. So I'm just going to switch to my ice cream scoop because I find that it kind of gives it a great measure. It's like a great measuring tool for cupcakes. So I will switch to this, move all of this, and grab my cupcake.
Smile.
So now we're going to scoop our cupcake batter into our cupcake liners. And you can use whatever kind of liners you want. Sometimes I'll do lime green because obviously they're margaritas. But I like this brown parchment color because it just gives it a real nice contrast with the lemon, the lime that I'm going to put on top, and the buttercream icing, which I'll show you guys once these are in the oven. Like how much, like I know this one right here may need a little more, and that way I know like if I put enough in each one. So now I'm going to put them in the oven. And then prepare the other. So I actually got my nickname for these cupcakes because my friends love them so much that they have dubbed me Cupcake, and a good deal of my friends don't even call me by my name. They call me Cupcake from these cupcakes. So whenever anybody's having a party or it's Easter, they order them and they are a hit because you probably could get a buzz off of one or two of them. So they're a nice complement to really savory barbecue or tacos and our outdoor summer party. the oven. Okay, now we're going to do our frosting, and for this frosting, it calls for two sticks of butter, a cup of butter. I like to use I'm doubling my recipe, so if I wasn't doubling, I would use 1 stick of salted and 1 stick of unsalted. Because it's like a margarita cupcake, you want your frosting to be a little salty, like the salt on the rim of an actual margarita. So I'm going to add that into the bowl. These are the unsalted. And then I'm just going to whip this up. Incorporate the powdered sugar a little at a time. It's going to get everywhere. Just be prepared to clean it up. Unless you have a stand mixer with a cover, you're going to get a little mess. If you're using handheld, the powdered sugar kind of fluffs up. And that's why I like to do it a little at a time. Now I'm going to scrape down the sides a little, because as you probably saw, it splashed in your face. And this is, I doubled my recipe, but you're going to need 2 3/4 cup of powdered sugar. Ready? So now the cupcakes are done. We're going to take them out. As you can see, they've got nice fluff to them. process, but worth it in the end. I have my icing for the most part mixed. I'm going to incorporate a teaspoon of Patron and then about like a half of a lime of lime juice, but a little at a time because like the cake batter, it curdled, so we don't want our icing to curdle, so we're literally going to do a little at a time. Put it in, mix it. Once it's all incorporated, continue. So I want to add a little powdered sugar in between that to kind of keep it thick and so it doesn't curdle. So kind of like how we were doing the buttermilk with the batter and with the dry ingredients, we're going to do that with the Patron lime juice and the powdered sugar. Color. I like to add a little bit of my leftover lime zest. And for the salt on the rim, because we're using salted butter, we're just going to do a couple twists of kosher sea salt. So you want to pull it out like this and see peaks, and that lets you know that your frosting is good to go. It'll withhold the test of piping. It like totally tastes the Patron. It's like sitting on my tongue, and it's like a sugar Patron party. It's awesome. So now that we have this all mixed, side scraped down, I'm gonna put it into my piping bag and then put it into the refrigerator. So I like to use disposable piping bags, and so I've measured and cut the tip of the piping bag and inserted my piping tip. And I use a cup to keep it neat while I'm putting the frosting into the piping bag. So you just put the bag over the cup, open it up, and then You can just pour it in. And that's good enough for right now. So now I'm going to poke holes in it. I'm using a skewer. You can use whatever you like. I'm going to poke holes in them. The cake is so fluffy, it pops right out of the molds. So then I have my Patron in the cup, and I'm going to just pour a little on the top. And then once that's poured on the top, I'm going to start piping them. Just for a little color. Now we're going to top them with limes. As you can see, I've done the others. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in to Sweet Treats with Gia. And I ask you to tune in next week when I cook my famous oatmeal cookies.